Okay, am I live? I hope I am live now. Can people see me now? Is this working? Oh my goodness, wow. All right, I'm going to go ahead and apologize. I've actually been streaming for 40 minutes and been having nothing but failures while trying to get this going. And all on my view, I was seeing chats and people saying that I wasn't starting, but my stream was going and it was playing through YouTube for me, and I was getting no errors for my streaming software. Somehow, I had to completely kill the stream and restart the thing from the ground up in order to get this to actually stream to the link that I sent out. But I have no idea why it wasn't working. So, my apologies for such an incredible failure. Because, goodness gracious, my apologies. So, for those who've been sitting on this stream, patiently waiting for me to start, my apologies. I've been going for a while. I just thought I was going insane and no one actually cared to talk to me. So, I'm glad that people can see me now. I'm going to start over from the very beginning here, or at least more or less from the beginning. I'm going to start right here. So, welcome to the stream. I have no idea why there's that big of a failure. I don't. That is some sort of weird YouTube thing, I guess. I really don't know. Um, so my apologies. My apologies. So let's kick it off all over again. What I am building to start with is this set right here. I'm actually halfway through it because I've been building it thinking that my stream was working just fine. Um, this is a gift with purchase that came with, and let's bring this up and mute the window capture. It came with this big, awesome. Sorry, my mic is in the way. This big, awesome set. This is what I'm going to be building soon. I was going to do the little gift with purchase first as I waited for people to join the stream. But apparently I was just sitting around waiting for no one because no one was getting a live stream, which is just bizarre. So my apologies. You prepare, you try to get everything going, and then who knows what it is that completely kills it for you. I was just moving merrily along, just thinking that people were just kind of doing their own thing. So my apologies, everyone. When I started seeing it hasn't started yet, got an alert, I was asking questions, no one was responding. I was like, something is up here. But again, YouTube was telling me that everything was going well. I was watching the feed of my live stream. It seemed like it was going well. My apologies. So we'll dive right back in. So I built this thus far. This is what I've built so far. Is this little kit. Comes with these two little Robin Hood-esque merry men and merry ladies. This is a lady, you can tell by her long braided hair. Minifigures. It's an old castle theme that Lego did back in like the 90s, called the Forestman theme. And they kind of revived it, at least in part, this year. This is Lego's 90th anniversary. You can actually see that right here. So they've been around for 90 years. And as part of their celebration, they have relaunched this kind of classic castle system set, which is why I bought this big, awesome castle set. And Now that the stream is live very late, I apologize. I'll start going through some of the things I'd gone through kind of early on. The reason I linked the Discord, as I get back to building here, the reason I linked the Discord is I wanted to make sure people were joining it. I'm going to try to be better about participating on the Discord. The past couple of, I mean, honestly, this live stream is just kind of like the cherry on top. The last couple of months have been pretty rough. It's the reason I haven't been doing a lot of live streams. I've also been trying to get some of the channel stuff going again, do actual produced videos. Not everything goes as planned sometimes. So, as is evident today, but now that I see that people are actually joining the stream, start chatting away. Get my attention for something. If you want to talk about something specific, I'm up for just about any topics. But without any topics being thrown out there, I will just say I am assuming that my stream is still going. And I have a lot of potentially fun things lined up. Some things I actually can't talk about that are kind of somewhat channel related. That I will probably do something about when and if I can. I have to be very vague because I don't want to spoil anything. And yeah, I want to kick off these live streams a bit more. These are a great way for me to unwind as before. You've been there playing Atom RPG. What is Atom RPG? Is this something I need to look up? Oh, post-apocalyptic indie game. Looks a lot like Fallout. Old Fallout. Interesting. I like that. Yeah, so things I will say in general, I spent quite a while actually working on my first video back, my first produced video back in a couple of years. Part of that was just the amount of effort that went into all the component parts for it. It's a very, very different type of video than the ones I've done before. It hasn't gotten a huge view number like I used to get in videos, but I'm not really surprised by that. As I've said before, part of the rebranding and redoing of the channel is going to come with some amount of viewership loss and people getting used to the idea of it not being a purely medieval channel. For these live streams, especially for this castle, as I start getting into building it, I might take some breaks from building to actually do some video work on it, because I will likely do a review of this castle. It seems to be very in theme with both the old and the new for the channel, so I will likely be doing some of that along the way. Thanks, Wyoming. Watch it just to give me a view. Well, it's not everyone's cup of tea, and I recognize that. Part of why I did that video at the end of it was just if I didn't do something with the work I had done on that topic, I would have felt like it was an incomplete project, basically, if that makes any sense, right? It's like if you sit down and design a desk and you start building it and you get to the point where really the last thing to do is to put a stain on it, and you don't do that. You don't bother putting a stain on the desk you just built. What's the point, right? You've kind of gone 90% of the way, and you just kind of got to get that last little bit done to really call it a complete project. And that's really where that video project came from more than anything. I've spent years messing around with video game files and being a fan of video games just in general. but also having a background in programming and software development and knowing how to use those tools and whatnot, I really kind of got into it, especially in today's modern age where video games are much more ephemeral. I kind of got into the whole game preservation piece. And Unity games that are like on mobile systems and whatnot are prime for being able to explore the internals of the games. And that's where that project came from. It's kind of a passing interest turned into a kind of an in-depth thing that I was pretty sure no one else was doing except for me. And when I got done doing all that work, kind of extracting game files and seeing what was planned and what probably never got developed and launched, etc., with, it's basically a dead game. I got a lot done. I had all this reconstruction stuff done, and it just sat there. It sat there for the better part of 2 years, I think. And I wanted to kind of be able to put it out there in the public view and let people find it, and then call it done at that point. And it really felt that way. It's I got that video done, and it was kind of like a sigh of relief. I was actually done. I had done my part. I'd done all that I could do, and the rest is history, as it were. So I find it to be a very fascinating topic for that reason. Even though the video itself doesn't really get into the process of what I was doing to preserve parts of that game, I felt like it was, again, it's at least out there for people who are interested in the subject. So it's not going to be the most normal type of video I do. In fact, it's probably the only one of those types of videos I'll probably ever do. So this video game, Atom RPG, takes place in the Soviet part of the world. There's another game that does that, right? I mean, obviously, like Metro Exodus does, but there's a couple of others that take place there, right? What's the one? There's one that's pretty famous, right? Trying to remember which one. See how out of touch I am with video games these days. But yeah, gonna try to be better about building a social media presence. One of the things I've probably struggled with the most is it just takes a lot of effort to produce those things, but I want to get more active on the Discord, talk to people more, get people's thoughts on things. I want to get the live stream going more, and I just want to have some fun at the end of the day. But I'm really excited, again, to get back into doing some video work and producing some interesting topical videos. So this is where the failure of YouTube comes in when I'm looking at live stream stuff, and this is probably why it took me so long to realize that I wasn't actually getting a stream going. I see my concurrent viewer count, it jumps around all over the place, but I don't know who's viewing unless people are actually chatting. So please feel free to actually chat, get things going. Because I really don't know who's actually watching, and that's part of the fun of a live stream, is actually talking to individuals. Oh yeah, and what I was going to say is, and I think I talked about this in the other live stream that didn't go anywhere, the past summer has been very rough. So at the beginning of the summer, this area that I'm in right now, and of course we're still in the heat of the summer, so it's not the best, but it's pretty miserable up here after a while, and so trying to spend time up here doing live streams wasn't working out real well, especially in the heart of the summer. But there's also just a ton of issues. I had fun medical issues, We had, over the past couple months, we've had floods in our basement. We're actually actively undergoing a bathroom remodel. So life has just been really upended and busy. Again, one of the reasons I haven't been doing a lot of these streaming activities. And then, yeah, me working on produced videos as well. So let's pull this back, see if we can't get a better view of what I'm building here. Yeah, I don't blame people for. So Wyoming tends to ignore mobile games. I don't blame people for ignoring mobile games. I would tend to ignore mobile games as well. The difference for me is it's one of the few options I have with such young kids to get a little bit of video game time in here and there. It's nice to have a little mobile game. But they really are. They're kind of trash for the most part. I like Tom Clancy franchise games. At least I traditionally have. And that's actually what interests me about that specific game. Let's get a slightly better view. What I'm building something a little bit too tall now. Here we go. There we go. You can see I'm watching a baseball game too. And now the focus is all off. There we go. So I much prefer an actual proper video game, but I like the Tom Clancy franchise, and the Tom Clancy franchise has had a rough run when it comes to mobile games. But part of what I find really interesting is that specific game had a real interesting concept and potential that was just never realized. And that's very unfortunate, but I still find it very fascinating. Your grandfather and only really have 2 kids left. 3 of our 5 are grown. Yeah. Well, and there's going to be I'm sure it's always going to be hard to find time, but there's also going to be a very big difference between finding time to play video games as a father of 2 that are very young, and as they get older, they get more mild levels of independence, or maybe even interest in similar things. I would actually find time to play games with my kids, for example. That's just not the age they're at right now. In fact, the most recent development along those lines is that one of my kids, has developed an interest in a real basic tablet game that is Paw Patrol themed. So yeah, you married a geek, so you play together. My wife and I would play together. When we first got married, we would play Lord of the Rings online together. And when we had when I started playing The Division a lot more, she'd play with me. But we started doing that. We started playing that one a lot together right when our first kid was born. And so we really only ever found time to play during nap time. And we, when we kind of reached the natural end point of playing that game, we just kind of stopped. And neither of us really have time or energy, it feels like, anymore. So that's kind of how that has panned out these days. It is very nice, though, to be able to sit down and play video games with your wife. I do look forward to those days again. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun with my kids if they decide they like video games and don't just become very introverted teenagers. It's going to be very fun to be able to share those experiences with them. It's one of the things I'm really looking forward to as a dad, is not just playing video games with my kids, but also like sharing my favorite movies with them, sharing those kinds of experiences. They're just at an age right now where those things are real basic. So take about 10 years unless you have more kids before they're at a point where they want to play video games with me. But see, at that point, they're teenagers and they don't want to do anything. They don't want to have anything to do with me. That's how that works, right? Pretty sure that's how that works anyway. All right. So we're nearing the end of this little build. And we'll be able to get to the actual castle build here. Oh, 10 years before I have time to play. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, it sounds a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, I'm sure I'll be okay with that at some level. That was a confusing perspective this thing was trying to give me. It's kind of funny. My wife and I have found that the lack of time is kind of a double-edged sword sometimes. It's like we don't regret any of the having kids or any of that. It's such a blast, but there are those times where you're like, yeah, I haven't played a video game, truly sat down in like a really long time. My plan is actually I'm going to be taking some vacation soon, and one of my plans for that time is just get some good video game time in. Because it's going to be a vacation where no one else is taking a vacation with me. So I get to do kind of whatever I want for like half a week. That'll be nice. All right. Let's take a look at this model now that it's built. Let's take a closer look. So, here it is. This is based on an older set that I always wanted and never actually got as a kid. And you got your little archer and swords lady and target here. And one of my favorite things about old Lego set designs like this is they had, and this is actually true of this castle as well, you have this fold out view and this folded up more three-dimensional view, which works really well. So, great little build. It's nice that it's kind of a free gift with purchase thing. And I can just set it all up and set it to the side. And we'll get started on this big castle. How about? Wyoming says, make sure you don't give them too much screen time. It will cause all sorts of issues. Yeah, we are actually very cautious about their screen time. Because I as someone who grew up around video games but not social media, I recognize the issues with both of them really. But especially social media. I have a pretty strong dislike of it personally. So I don't really use social media. And that's part of what I was saying. Like, I need to get better at using it as I try to kind of regrow and re-get into the channel. Yeah, it's a great little set. Little forest hideaway. Kind of got this black tree thing. So one of the things you're going to see, if I zoom in right over here, see that tree right there? It's behind this little castle wall that's like a black tree. That's a nod to this set, basically, or this theme. I really hope they actually truly revive the castle stuff, because it's really one of the better themes that they would run with. And these older themes, these forestman themes, were just amazing. So, that's a pretty cool free gift with purchase. You say free, it's a marketing ploy. This Lego set, this big castle set, was really quite expensive. So, free is a very relative term when it comes to all this. I'm going to set this up on my computer right here. That way it's truly out of the way. And we're going to get into this bigger castle set. Hey, Gingerbeard, how you doing? And I'm looking for ideas. By the way, I'll take a brief intermission here. Since, again, there's so many things I said when we were... so many things I said when I thought I was live and I wasn't. I'm looking for ways to kind of build the community back up. And a lot of that's just being consistent, which is kind of hard. But one of the things I want to do, like what I do when I'm sitting here is I watch baseball, I talk to y'all, I kind of multitask. I thought it might be fun, actually, for us to find something that we could kind of communally watch, whether it's a show or a movie. I wouldn't show it on screen, obviously, and you wouldn't even hear it, but we could all start it together and talk through it and just kind of enjoy it together. That would be an option. Whether that's something like watching Star Trek or whatever show you guys are interested in, especially when we get out of baseball season and I don't have baseball happening almost every night, that would certainly be an option. So if y'all have an idea of something you'd like to watch in that kind of communal setting, that we could, on a live streaming basis, no live television, because I don't really do live TV. All right. So this box is so big. I mean, to give you an idea, it's kind of hard to tell scale here sometimes, but let me move all this out of the way. You can see the scale of my hand to this box. It's a pretty hefty box. It's about 2 feet by 2 feet by 8 inches in terms of dimensions. Yeah, it's a really big set, and it's gonna have a lot of parts in it. I'll take a look at the box. Here's what's gonna be kind of what we're gonna be producing as we go. The interior looks like a little. I have not looked at this, by the way. I have spent so little time with this besides some of their initial Lego's initial. I should bring my mic back over. Some of Lego's initial advertisements for this. Looks like we get a nice little armory space and a portcullis with a horse in there. Some little jail cells over here. Get dining rooms and throne rooms and mills. A lot of stuff. And this is what I think is really cool. So you kind of get this expanded view where it's opened up, right? And that's kind of what they're showing on the front here. They're showing this open view. But much like this little tree fort thing I just built, this is actually the call it the non-display or the closed view. So yeah, it becomes very well encapsulated, and it's actually a lot tighter than you'd think when it's all folded up, and that's something I think is really cool. So let's see here. Set up and read chat a little bit. Wyoming says doesn't watch New Trek. Neither do I. I've heard people talking about Strange New Worlds as if it's very good. I know nothing about it. I'm actually going to take this off the desk so I can open it. But people have been talking about Strange New Worlds as if it's a very, very good show. They say it's a lot more of that optimistic view. It's not Star Trek Picard or all the other stuff, Discovery. That said, I have not delved into it, and actually, when I was making that recommendation, I meant something like Next Generation, not New Trek. But if we wanted to watch New Trek together, I guess you could maybe convince me. There are plenty of interesting modern shows on streaming, but it doesn't have to be modern. It can be literally anything you guys want. If we started doing something like that, and I'd be open to recommendations on it. And is this desk going to be big enough? Well, so I moved, if you remembered, this back wall used to be full of, which is now empty, but it used to be full of storage drawers for parts, and I've actually moved those to the other side of the room to get them out of the way. So I have plenty of desk space to build this on, more than enough to build this on. As I was doing the live streaming stuff, this space was originally not set up for live streaming. I kind of just adapted it. I came up here about a month ago and reorganized it for this purpose, but I never got around to actually doing the live streams again because of all the issues I ran into the past couple months. Is it an original set? If so, it's awesome. Yes, it's a brand new set. It released at the very beginning of August. Came out August 3rd for VIP members, of which I am one, and anyone can be. And then I think it went on general sale at on the 8th of August. So I've actually had it for a couple weeks, but I haven't done anything with it because I was doing all the other stuff, getting videos ready to publish and building other sets downstairs, getting ready to do live streaming again. So it is very awesome. It is very expensive though, so you have to really want this Lego set. And this box comes with boxes inside of it. Big boxes. And lots of bags, but it looks like all the bags in the main box are for later in the set, so that means this bigger box, or this, smaller box, which I have to move this camera all the way back just to be able to see anything, it will contain the bags I need to start building. And my understanding for how this set is built is slightly modular, so you're kind of building parts of the castle at a time, and each one is its kind of own micro build. Alright, this is going to be a lot of bags, so let me move that up a little bit. Sorry if that was loud, everyone. That loud thunk would be the instruction manual here. We'll get into that in a moment, although I'm going to be putting it up on the live stream digitally so everyone can kind of follow along with me. By the way, pro tip, although I do not believe that it is a better way of doing it, if you can't afford a Lego set like this to build, there's actually a really interesting alternative, which is to use the Lego Designer software, stud.io, and follow the instructions and build it virtually. I've heard of people doing that. Because Lego can get very expensive, and they've been increasing their prices pretty steadily. So I can understand it when people are reticent to drop that kind of money. And I'm trying to sort through these bags, so I apologize as it gets very loud. Let's see. Wyoming says, Strange New Worlds is Paramount trying to regain lost fans. It isn't. It isn't as far as numbers go. Yeah, I've been burned too much to care anymore. And, generally speaking, sorry for the noise. Generally speaking, I'm at the point with a lot of these things where I'm not going to disparage anyone for enjoying their shows, but I'm not going to be convinced that it's for me. I just don't care anymore most of the time. I think that's kind of the state television shows are going to be in for the next little while. People are just not going to care anymore. I have definitely felt it myself, like the burnout with certain things. Sorry, try to open this. I felt it with the burnout of Marvel movies. I've been a big comic book fan forever. Sorry, my cat was sleeping right behind me, and I just about dropped something on her. She's being very quiet, which is unusual. Look at the size of these books. These are instruction manuals. There's two of them, pretty thick. But we don't really need those, so I'm going to set them right over here. But yeah, I've just felt the burnout. One of my favorite comic book characters was Moon Knight, and I watched the show with my wife, and it was okay, but I just didn't care anymore. I'm just burned out on it. And it's not even that I don't like them, it's just I'm kind of done for a while. I want something new, I think. It's like over a decade of the same stuff. And every passing moment with the new Lord of the Rings show, it just looks worse and worse and worse. And I have less and less interest in watching it. Okay, I'm going to pull up the virtual instructions for this. Let me get these instructions back up on the screen. There we go. All right. I'm going to get this set back up so everyone can see. This is where I got to build things. I'm going to like tape out a little build area, I think, at some point, so I don't mess that up anymore. Uh-oh. I just killed my camera. Double check, make sure I'm getting power to it. Should be, but let's check the battery levels here. Alright, should be good. Try that again. Let's see. Haven't purchased a new Lego set more than 20 years. Yeah, there was a while there where I wasn't buying Lego sets. But they've always been something I've enjoyed, so. They look like military fight manuals. Yeah. When a series only... FM manuals, sorry. When a series only talks about the political points you want to, instead of the plot, etc., the show will suck. I guess it depends on the show, but yeah, it's not even that. I don't know. I very often try to separate, especially these days, any type of political things. But it's just like when it just is just wrong, right? Like, sometimes it's not even all that definable in what ways something is wrong, but it can just be wrong. It doesn't come off very well. All right, let's read this. Let's read this part of the manual. A long time ago, I'm going to do my best announcer voice. Once there was a big castle with valiant knights, horses, kings, queens, and tournaments, and lots of adventures every day. So started the LEGO product catalog description of the now iconic 375 castle set. When it launched in 1978, often referred today as the Yellow or Original Castle, it was the beginning of a much-loved medieval adventure that would continue uninterrupted all the way to 1999. As part of the LEGO 90th anniversary celebrations, we've chosen to pay homage to this popular theme with a new Lion Knight's Castle, inspired by classic 6080 King's Castle set from 1984. So there you go. The original Yellow Castle set is actually really expensive on the aftermarket. Um, and yeah, it was about the 80s and 90s when I would have. I mean, I was born in 1983, so it wouldn't have been that specific castle set. But it was along that time frame of the 80s and 90s that I was buying these things as a kid. And here is, oh, look, well, here's the castles they talk about. So here's the 1978 castle. It's the 375 castle. Original castle that started it all. Striking, zoom in a little bit so I can read it better. The striking yellow walls of this castle were hinged to create multiple configurations and access the interior for easy play. While the yellow walls were quickly phased out for a more realistic gray, the hinged wall design still seen in Lego castles today. Some of the oddities of this model are the brick-built horses and the classic space helmet with a new visor used as the helmet for the knights. Yeah, the brick-built horses were pretty quickly phased out. But yeah, it's actually, realistically, a lot of the parts in this type of thing you could get pretty easily in the aftermarket. But what is crazy expensive are the shields and the stickers and this little flag up here. Um, they're just insanely expensive parts, and if they're all together in one big set, it's really crazy. See if I go. This is supposed to be one where this is much larger, so let me reorient this thing a little bit. Oh, not what I want. I am sorry, I have lost audio. Man, this is just a live stream fail. My apologies, everyone. I was looking at the thing here and talking about it, and not paying attention to the live chat. So my apologies. I'll just reiterate what I was saying. Um, I was kind of reading through this instruction set, the stuff they were saying about it. Um, you know, this model is built based on a lot of these old castle models. This one in 1992 was the one I always wanted as a kid. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. So my apologies for the audio dying. More live stream fails tonight. My goodness, can't get anything right. And this model was voted on by Lego fans in terms of what theme they wanted to see revived. So I was just looking through and reading through some of this stuff, and I failed to do it properly, so my apologies. We got a lot about the designers. Here, the design team for this. Michael Sakai, Milan Maj, and Ashwin Vasir. All right. Well, after all these live stream fails, how about we get back to actually building things and not completely failing to do live streaming properly? I can do all the prep in the world, and I seem to completely screw it up, even when I'm not trying to. All right. So my apologies, everyone. So I've got the instructions up. The first bag is going to be building this ox-driven cart and a market stall and a keg, and I don't know what this thing is, but I'll find out. It'll be fun. So our little minifigure here. Oh, he's going to be a poop smith here. He's going to have his little satchel and pitchfork. He's going to follow that oxen really closely. Here's our... Can't get it to focus. Here's our fun little peasant with pitchfork and basket on back. And I wasn't sure what these little steps were, but it looks like they're using these pattern blocks to make what looks like hay. Little sheafs of hay. So what I've learned from this live stream is I need to spend some time fixing my streaming setup to not break when I change between views, because that is what was happening a good bit. And then I need to sort out what in the world happened with the actual stream to YouTube and why it failed so catastrophically. Alright, and we have... I'm going to readjust this window a little bit so we can see a little bit better. There we go. So we actually have this happy little cow as well, or oxen. That's a I don't know if I've ever seen that particular animal model before. So I hope this will end up being a fun build, and I hope I can have some fun live streams uh, even if I have failed catastrophically tonight. I hope that future streams go better and we can enjoy it. It's a horse apple collector. Nah, I like my term better. It's I don't even know where that came from. It's something my family has always called it. Is the town poopsmith, of which I have been one before for horses specifically. Yeah, with a pitchfork. You muck out the stalls and whatnot, right? You have hay and dirt, sandy dirt, and then you use the pitchfork to get that out. Multifunctional tool. The solids go with the pitchfork and the hay, and the rest stays behind. At least that's what I've used before. I don't know. I'm not like a professional stall mucker, so, you know. Oh, what's going to be fun with these bigger, very adult-oriented sets, by the way, it tends to stick. Yeah, I can see that. It's also a pun, right? Is that they'll actually have a little commentary through the instructions that we can read as we go. Well, I'm not exactly a farmhand per se. It's just been one of the things I've used before among shovels and other things, but I don't speak with any real authority on any of that. So do not take me as an authority of the subject. Wyoming would definitely be the authority of the subject as far as people I know. I got that upside down. There we go. Yes, what this says is that supposed to be this guy's name? Oh, no. Okay, I see. Yeah, so Jan Firkin contains a drink so potent it could turn a beard white. So here's a little fun little drink stand there. First read that, I was like, did they just make this little minifigure's name Jan Firkin? That didn't make any sense. We have horses and cattle, and we use shovels and pitchforks. Okay, but you use pitchforks, right? Like, obviously you use shovels as well. But if all you have is a pitchfork, you'd use it. Yeah, no, the Firkin size gig, yeah, I realized that. It was, when I read the yawn, Y-A-N, I didn't read it as, like, slang, medieval slang for yonder. I read it as, like, a capitalized letter for a name. And it just confused me at first. My brain did not engage fully. It wasn't until I saw that Firkin was, or Firkin, or however you say it, was not capitalized. I was like, oh wait, no, that is not what they were doing. Alright, got a nice little market stall going here. I'm always amazed with the versatility that Legos can provide sometimes. take simple blocks and begin to make something really interesting. And the creativity of the creation, even if something as simple as a stall like this sometimes, is pretty impressive. So is anyone who is on the stream right now watching, has anyone actually seen all the way through the video I made out of curiosity? The most recent one about shadow break? As I said, I think generally I would expect most people to have not honestly watched a lot of it, because it is a radical departure from probably content most people actually care about. You grab the piles while they're fresh and use it to make biogas. If it's dry enough and the pitchfork works, it does make good gas. Interesting. You are a true homesteader type, Wyoming. Yeah, the main thing I guess I'm curious of, the reason I was asking is, what does my general audience, as it were, think of that type of content? Something that is so radically different. I mean, realistically, I really see my channel having a lot more potential as a... I don't want to use the term vlogging, because it's not what I expect to make. I would like to do produced videos, but they're going to just be much more things that I'm interested in as a broad subject matter as opposed to specifics. Of which that video is one of those types of things. Alright, so there is my market stall right here. Interesting little market stall with its leafy greens and bread. And do they have cherries in medieval Europe? I actually don't know that. Are cherries common in Europe? As far as like a like a what's the word I'm looking for? A standard crop that was common? I have no idea. Biogas is easy. Keep it at the right temp, stir regularly, and 9 days later you have gas that works as well as natural gas. The true natural gas. You're watching this while cutting rings for chainmail. Oh, awesome. Stairway. Okay. I'm going to have tons of questions now. Here are my questions in order. How are you cutting the rings? Are you winding the springs yourself? What size rings, both gauge and diameter? What are you making? And what type of metal? That was a lot of questions, but I'll reiterate them. So I'm very interested, because chainmail is something that I did a lot back in the day. So what type of metal? What ring size? What type of cut are you doing? Are you winding the springs yourself? And general dimensions. What are you making? Very curious. I'd love to know. This type of content, and I don't mean my channel, I mean like just videos online or whatever, is great for while you're making chainmail, because you can just sit back and just make it and make it and make it and sit there and just keep doing the very repetitive task to the point where you don't even really look at what you're doing anymore. I actually got so good. I made chainmail for like 10 years or something like that. I got good enough at it that I wouldn't even look at what I was doing half the time. I would do it while talking to people, making eye contact with them. I would just be sitting there, much like people who knit do. They don't really look at what they're doing at a point. They end up just doing it by muscle memory. Wyoming, you use. I wouldn't expect you. I would expect most people to want to use riveted rings, depending on the project. Certainly, it does not surprise me that you use riveted rings because you're probably ready for the zombie apocalypse. And riveted rings are certainly what you'd want to use if you're going to do anything truly like historically accurate and proper. Do you actually, Wyoming? Have you actually made anything like have you made a hallmark or anything out of chainmail? Because I could talk about chainmail like ad nauseum forever. It's like one of my all-time favorite subjects. It's the hobby I got into when I didn't have the money, time, or space to get into blacksmithing. Specifically when I was in college. It was a hobby I could take with me anywhere, for the most part. And pretty much everything I've ever done with chainmail has not been riveted. But the vast majority of what I've done with chainmail has either been costume grade or has been art projects like inlays. 16 gauge, good gauge. That's the one I tend to use. Galvanated from a spool. One coil various sizes, currently AR36. Good aspect ratio. And you cut it with an old SB. All right. And what are you planning? So galvanized wire. You're gonna make a costume grade ish, but still probably it's gonna be heavy if it's galvanized steel. But you're making like a hallmark, I assume. Do you find, by the way, that your hands hurt after a while of cutting galvanized steel? Because 16 gauge isn't the thickest thing in the world, but galvanized steel, and you're cutting that with what's basically nippers, right? Your hand's gonna hurt after a while. When I first started making chainmail projects, first thing I ever made was a coif, Lorica style sleeveless shirt. Great, awesome. Yeah. So Dremels are definitely. I would say Dremels, generally speaking, are like the preferable if you want a really nice tight butting as you're making it. Although I have found when you're doing armor, I actually preferred nipped rings if you're going to use the butted method because they actually catch a little bit and create oddly what feels like a smoother surface. Ah, yes. So this is one of the reasons that many people may not even watched my new video. I did change my channel name. Yeah, so that change in channel name is specifically because I'm not necessarily always going to do medieval content. And I wanted to make sure that the channel properly reflected that. So I made a change, and I knew going in, like, a lot of this stuff was going to confuse people and drive some people away here and there. This says, yon cart is drawn by oxen. An oddity as this reminds one of Cousin Willa's windships. Okay. don't know what Cousin Willa's Winship is. I'll have to go look that up later. Obviously a reference to another set. This is a really clever thing that they've done to make this hay in the cart kind of thing. I like that. Put a little bird in it too for some reason. There we go. There's my ox-drawn cart right here. So check that out. I like that little model. That's a good one. I think I missed a step, by the way, going back up here. Yeah. I was supposed to put these little pieces on this market stall. So let's see. You made a resistant welder from microwave parts. There you go. I got some very ingenious and inventive people as my audience here. New name, the channel formerly known as Medieval Review. I mean, I announced it. I did a slight announcement. My intro to the channel is actually still the same. But, you know, even with some communications around it, you're going to confuse some people who aren't paying close attention. Sterry says, you weld the rings. The zinc has to be stripped by soaking the batch in vinegar overnight. Anticipating that about 50,000 rings. Okay. Yeah, I got to the point when I was making mail that the fun of doing the entire process kind of got lost on me after a while. And as I started doing more inlays and moving more towards like anodized aluminum for that, I got to the point where I just bought rings in bulk from the Ring Lord. Which in some ways is a little bit of blasphemy, but it was the type of thing where I just really wanted to get the project done as opposed to all the prep work. So that's really interesting. So you're doing this really, you're doing this very roundabout way of utilizing galvanized steel that you can weld. That's very interesting. You've already made a 14 gauge coif mantle. So those are, you know, pretty thick rings. Your aspect ratio is probably a little bit different at that size. Did you weld it? I'm going to, real quick, plug the Discord here. I would love to see pictures of it. If you would like to join the Discord and post pictures of it, I would love to see it. Love to see some of the work you've done. Alright, so we have the first part of this castle set built, although the actual rest of the castle set, or the actual castle itself, will be this next stage. Did I watch House of Dragons last night? Nope. Was it any good? I do not care about Game of Thrones at all. I barely cared. I barely cared about any of the Game of Thrones on HBO. Although I watched the first 4 seasons kind of after it came out. I never watched it proactively when it was, you know, actually happening. And it was good. You know, it was fun. But my interest in fantasy tends to lie more with something along the lines of Lord of the Rings over Game of Thrones. But I'll be honest, I'm just getting tired of the retread of old properties at this point. You know, a decade of Game of Thrones ending on a very poor, poor note, as I understand it. Although, again, I only watched the first 5 seasons, and I gave up at that point because I could see the writing on the wall personally. I didn't want to waste my time. I learned my lesson about bad TV show endings from the show Lost, and I never really. I'm willing to cut ties and run. The sunk cost fallacy for a TV show doesn't really work on me, so I'm willing to give up on a show, even if I've invested a bunch of time watching it. I'm actually at the point where I'm basically retreading old shows that I really enjoy and not paying attention to any of the new ones. Everyone's watching House of Dragons or I don't know, new Star Trek or I'm here watching like old news radio episodes. So something lighthearted, comedic, and like one-off. But I'm certainly actually curious whether or not House of Dragons is any good. I don't particularly even care about that universe. So it has to sell me on like a good story, not a specific you're not going to sell me on the setting or the books, because I'm not a George R.R. Martin fan, and my interests do not lie there, generally speaking. So I don't particularly like dark, depressing, quasi raunchy as like a selling point. If that's all the show would have to offer me, there are other things I can watch. You stopped watching most TV before Lost came out. Lost was a really it was a very unique show in how it convinced ball game over. So I'm gonna take those off. Lost was a really interesting show in how it kind of reinvented how television worked. I mean, I think it's really easy to forget how television worked. And Lost was really ahead of its time in terms of telling these really large, overarching stories that really required you to tune in every single week, or to be completely out of the water cooler talk, as it were. I watched it quasi after the fact, but yeah, it was a very disappointing show in the end, which is sad because I felt like the cast was really good and a lot of the writing, at least for the first couple seasons, were really good. Game of Thrones was totally done dirty by Dan and Dave, but yeah, Tolkien is more wholesome in comparison. Well, it's more wholesome right now, but let's give it till September. I'm pretty sure it's going to get drugged through the mud pretty good with the new show. Enjoyed House of Dragons, mostly rewatch as well. The only new shows I'm really watching is Yellowstone and Strange New Worlds. Okay. I've heard a lot of good things about Yellowstone, and I like Western stuff, so I need to find time to watch that. Stairway says, also working on another shirt of 16 gauge AR4, but the wire is rebar, so it's a little soft before welding. It stinks a bit from the oil burning off. Interesting. Fantasy definitely needs to return to being more lighthearted and whimsical. Very true. I can understand not trying to sell too much whimsy in like a live action show. When I think about, it's not going to be the best example, but when I think about the Hobbit movie that came out, which in my opinion was just an awful trilogy. The first one wasn't as bad, but you could see that it was not going a great direction, and by the end of the second movie, you knew it had all gone wrong. But I'm not going to fault it in some areas. I'm not sure who's read The Hobbit recently. But the really infamous scene of the dwarves being and Bilbo as well being captured by the three trolls in the forest. Um, does anyone remember why they get caught, or specifically why Bilbo gets caught? Because there's a lot of whimsy there, right? Amazon Rings of Power notwithstanding, of course. Yeah, yeah. Stairway, you're using tools that aren't produced anymore. That's go find yourself someone who can recreate it if possible. You can probably pay someone to who's good at producing handcrafted tools, as it were. Definitely room for classic fantasy and dark gritty fantasy, even though I'm a Tolkien purist through and through. Yeah, and you know, the thing is I have a hard time claiming to be a Tolkien purist because I'm not as well read on Tolkien stuff as many other people are. So I could certainly find myself enjoying something that is not pure Tolkien and set in Middle Earth if it was um, to my liking in general, even if it went against the lore potentially, because I may not know all that. But Tolkien fantasy certainly has a specific feel to it that can't be denied, and it's very easy to notice when things aren't that. And so I'll note the thing that got Bilbo caught by the trolls in the woods was he tried to steal their coin purse, and it was a talking coin purse, and it ratted him out. Most people don't remember that. There's actually a really great scene from the video game. There's a Hobbit video game that came out, I think it was after the Lord of the Rings films did. But they actually did that scene basically verbatim. They had the talking money pouch. And those are kind of nods, from a Tolkien-esque perspective. Those are nods to a lot of the Norse style of storytelling where inanimate objects can have personalities, and there's kind of this more whimsical feel even if the rest of the world isn't quite as fraught with whimsy. And I always view Tolkien's view of magic to be a more subtle magic as well. So you're not having people casting fireballs and whatnot, magic missile and whatnot. But it's not to say there's not a place for that in some fantasy. It's certainly not the type of fantasy I tend to enjoy. I definitely like the more Tolkien-esque fantasy, but a good fantasy story is a good fantasy story, right? And I think there should be room for that. I just find that everything these days seems to be so incredibly informed by what already is out there. So either they're trying to be the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films, or they're trying to be Game of Thrones, and no one's really being successful at it. My general opinion on the matter. I kind of figure I might give the first couple episodes of the Lord of the Rings show a chance, but I don't know that I'm going to get myself too invested in it. I really don't expect it to be good. I could always be surprised, I try not to make my decisions based purely on speculation and or talking points. Even if they're talking points I might tend to agree with, I still like to make up my own mind with that type of thing. So Stoon just said, "Need Tolkien, or you read Tolkien throughout the year, every year, and collected mostly Lord of the Rings memorabilia and statues." Yeah, I mean, I was on a real hard Tolkien kick especially after the films came out, because there was so much merchandise. Um, and, you know, it's funny, compared to today, there really actually wasn't a lot of merchandise, but at the time it felt like there was, which was a lot more than there used to be for Tolkien fans. Yeah, my family. I mean, I grew up with it, right? I grew up with The Hobbit, grew up with Lord of the Rings. I always preferred The Hobbit, like, you know, talking about whimsy there. The Hobbit is a much more lighthearted adventure fantasy story, and that I actually enjoyed that a lot more than Lord of the Rings. But I recognize how much more superior Lord of the Rings is from like a lot of the world building perspective. Stairway, your first Hobbit made years ago, was 12 gauge and weighed 75 pounds. 12 gauge. My goodness, that is ridiculous. It was just galvanized and bud. How did those rings not pull apart? Is what I want to know. Currently running a tabletop RPG for my family in Middle Earth, keeping true to Tolkien. Is that the Lord of the Rings tabletop RPG? What is it called? The One Ring? Is that what it's called? I actually I read the manuals for it, and I had some friends and I just before the pandemic actually did the start of a campaign. But what I found is that you kind of have to have some buy-in from the people who are playing it, and they have to be as invested in the Tolkien world. Because without that investment, there's a little bit of lack of whimsy. In other words, it doesn't necessarily play like Dungeons and Dragons, and for some people, that's a real killjoy. It's using the ice system. Okay, yeah. That's what I'm thinking of. So I think Game of Thrones was so successful and that it didn't copy Lord of the Rings, felt completely of its own. Yeah, and I agree. It can be its own thing. I didn't find it particularly compelling personally. I felt like it was a little bit too much trying to sell itself, and it's not just the show, the books as well. It tries to sell itself on things that aren't long lasting. Like, you know, you're going to sell people on violence and TNA and that kind of thing, but it's not the type of thing that people are going to want to revisit time and time again. It's not the type of story that is compelling time and time again, in my opinion. Sister of the Traveling Rings of Power. Let's see, it's hard to know whether or not all that will be true. The things that people are saying about the Rings of Power. Certainly there's evidence to suggest that that is the direction it will all go. But without it actually being out, it's all really speculation. And I get that some people are going to just... I mean, there's plenty of talking heads on YouTube who want to have something to be irate about. And I get it. As someone who likes Tolkien, there's a reason to be irate about it if that is the direction it goes. But the best way to kill that kind of awful treatment of things you love is to just not support it. And be willing to accept the fact that it's possible that there will be a whole host of people who are sold on it, and it is successful for that reason. And you just have to be willing to say, it's not for me, I'm going to move on. Because that's like what I do with Star Trek, right? I love The Next Generation. I really like Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, the original Star Trek. I kind of like it all. But the new stuff immediately turned me off of it, and I was willing to just say, look, there might be people who enjoy this, but I am not one of them, and I'm going to move on from it. And if you're not willing to do that, it can be very frustrating, to be honest, but I think you just need to learn to be able to do that. And it doesn't make you any less of a fan. It just makes you not a fan of that particular iteration. So we aren't saying she's quoting actors, and that's and I get that, right? One of the best indicators of that is when you can put clips side by side of Peter Jackson saying, we wanted to be true to Tolkien's vision. We didn't want to interject our own thoughts or beliefs. We wanted to reflect his beliefs as an author, even if it disagreed with our own personal beliefs, right? That was a thing that's my rough paraphrase of something that Peter Jackson said, right? And then you immediately turn around and you have the new producers of the new show saying, we want this to be a reflection of the modern whatever nonsense. Like, I get it. I 100% agree that the indication is that it's going to be awful. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying I won't just rage quit right off the bat, but I'm fully prepared to not watch it at all. And I'm not even sure that I'm going to watch it on release day. I will probably wait a while and see what the general reaction is, and see if it's worth me trying to give it a shot. And maybe I'll have probably some friends who will give it a shot. And if it's good, then and I have friends that recommend it, then maybe I'll give it a shot. Got this book of Alan Lee's artwork for the Hobbit films, and it looks more accurate to the book compared to the films. Yeah, the Hobbit films, The Lord of the Rings is what happened when Peter Jackson was willing to take a chance, and everyone along the way was willing to take a chance, and they all worked out of pure passion. The Hobbit is what happened when the money got in the way and the business got in the way, and even someone like Jackson had to make concessions for the purposes of the business. And that that was not a good film series, quite frankly. I didn't like it. I thought it was awful. But that's the thing. I kind of shrug it off and I say, okay, well, not for me. And I move on with my life because it's about all I can do. I seem to be missing one little piece. One of these green pieces. Did I drop it somewhere? Is it on the floor, in a bag? I'm not seeing it. Did it go under a laptop? Ah, it's stuck to my arm. That's where it is. I'm disappointed magic wasn't shown in Game of Thrones, even hinted at by Nightwatch Pugsley mentioned wanting to be a wizard. See, I never read the books, so I don't really have that context. I'm not sure how much magic was meant to be a big part of it. I've dabbled in some of George R.R. Martin's work, and again, it's one of those things where his books I don't particularly like. So I'm not, particularly keen on trying to give even the novels a shot. Going to do likewise and just wait for other people's reviews of it. See, and I'm not even going to make up my mind based on other people's reviews, because there's plenty of things that I like that I fully recognize people probably shouldn't like, and it's just my personal preference. But I have some friends who I would generally trust their opinion, and if they give me a, hey, you should give it a shot, then I'll probably give it a shot. And like I said, I might give it a shot even without that recommendation. I might, wait for the first couple episodes to come out, because I think it's going to be releasing, not all at once. I don't think. I could be wrong. If it's possible to binge it, yeah, I might give it a shot even quicker. But I'd probably let a couple episodes come out. But I fully expect to start it and to just not be interested at all, and just be done with it almost immediately. That's really what I expect. Galadriel special track, yeet. Yeah, see, it's the Galadriel part of all this that really confuses me the most. Like, all of the images of that. Okay, I would say it confused me the most. I would actually say that the hobbits in it confused me the most. But having Galadriel be this warrior character is just very bizarre to me. I don't understand that as a character basis for Galadriel. It really doesn't work. You're not going to watch any new shows both my time and money. And that's, again, that's where I'm going to get back to. Like I said, I could give it a chance, but I'm willing to walk away. And they'll know it because they'll get the metrics, you know. Millions of people watch the first episode and then choose not to watch the second. It will tell them something. But yeah, I new television, and I kind of want to use that term. Like, it is, I think, the most accurate, and I'm going to say new like NU, like the hip version of new. It's like this new wave of the way people think about how TV shows should be produced. And I'm not even talking about if it's woke or whatever the term is, right? Politically charged. Sometimes you can have shows that have none of that, not even a little bit of it, and there's some element of it that still just doesn't work. And the thing is, Amazon, in terms of shows, I've been enjoying a lot of their shows recently. I have really enjoyed their Jack Ryan stuff. I mostly enjoyed the Jack Reacher show. The Terminal List was okay. They've been producing some good stuff as well. So I won't just discount them wholesale, but again, I look at what is being produced in this case, and it is certainly not in line with what I would want. So just a word of warning, if you plan on welding chainmail, the reaction between vinegar and zinc produces pure hydrogen gas. So do that part outside. Yes. Or give it time for all that gas to subside, right? I wouldn't do any welding. When you say welding inside, I get this mental image of being in like my living room. I would never do welding outside of a controlled space, shall we say. Not that I'm very much of a welder either, though. I'm actually curious. What modern shows have people enjoyed? Like, does anyone have any recommendations? We got Yellowstone, and I've known that one. Are there any other recommendations or thoughts on good shows to enjoy? The instruction book says, how can these walls fit together? There's a magic at work here never seen before. It's called a hinge. They're doing some pretty interesting things in this set as I'm building it to create very interesting angles. And I'll actually show you this. I think it's really pretty cool. Let me get a good view on it. So right here, you can see this little bit of carve out using these angle pieces. And they're using, that size like negative space right here. Really interesting jig. And they're using the positive space in this part with hinges. And what that allows them to do is, when I click this in, that can rotate into that space and match it like a puzzle piece and click in. And that creates these interesting angles. And it's kind of one of the cool things that Lego is able to do. When you think about it being a square-based building system, and then they can do these interesting things with angle pieces to make something that's very, very different. I've seen them do a lot more of that recently in other sets that I've built, and it's one of the most impressive things. There's actually the Boutique Hotel modular set, which I have on a table over there. They actually talk about how they had to, in the booklet, they mention that they had to crunch some numbers and do some basic, textbook trigonometry to figure out how they were going to do a portion of the building, which I think is really cool. And their Stairway Unicorn piping in at just the right time with what I just said. It's called the Pythagorean theorem. Yeah, exactly. No, and that's what I mean. Like, that's kind of what I was getting at. But it's Lego has not done that traditionally, and it's something that I think they've borrowed from the larger, what they call MOC, my own creation community. A lot of the experts these days in these builds are pulling some of those concepts in. And while it's easy to say, like, yes, it's the Pythagorean theorem, you still have to, like, find out where the studs are going to line up and be able to make them fit, right? And there's a little bit of math, but there's also an art to that, which I find it fascinating. I think they do a good job with it. Jake Gothic Snake enjoyed this show called Siren. However, it was canceled after the third season. Oof, I hate it when that happens. If you enjoy a show and it gets canceled. Also enjoy the What We Do in the Shadows FX comedy about vampires. So I've seen the movie What We Do in the Shadows. That was Taika Waititi, right? The guy who directed the Thor Ragnarok. They do Ragnarok? I know he's doing the more recent Thor movie. I think he did Ragnarok, right? Kind of a talented director, although I've heard that some of his more recent movies aren't very good. I think that's all the same thing. And the movie was funny. It's kind of right along my kind of comedy. So yeah, if that's a show, I didn't even realize it was a show. I think it was on HBO, right? I watched the show Barry. It's a great show with Bill Hader, who he plays a hitman, a really, really skilled assassin hitman who falls in love with the theater in L.A. and wants to just become an actor, but he's kind of stuck and keeps getting pulled back into this world of being a hitman. And it's a really fun and funny and also a very dark show, and it really balances a lot of that stuff perfectly, which I really liked. Peaky Blinders, yeah. I saw the first half of a season of that, and I don't remember why I quit watching it, but I feel like that's one I should go back and watch, because it's been going for a while now. Instructions here says, looks like someone sat on a 1x1 brick, or they stretched a plate. I'm not sure which thing they're talking about. These are new pieces, though, so maybe that's what they're talking about, these little short, stubby pieces. Yeah, Peaky Blinders is one that I'm aware of, but it's kind of, it's been around long enough that it's like, ooh, that kind of seems like it's going to be a bit of a time investment to watch. And this is what I'm going to go back to with my terminology of the new television, is everything just feels very dark and gritty. And Peaky Blinders, I think that might have been one of the reasons I quit watching it. I kind of started doing what I called the dark and gritty sandwich, which is for every dark and gritty show I'm watching, I get 2 comedy shows and I watch them concurrently. So I can not end every day feeling dour. So I end up watching a lot more sitcoms because of that. But I'll watch some dark show. My wife was a big fan of it. I've never read the original source material, but we watched The Sandman, and I've only seen the first half. And my wife says the rest of the season is also pretty good. And it's pretty good. It is enjoyable, very interesting. So I mean, there are new shows that are coming out that I enjoy, but I just find so many of them dark and depressing that I get turned off by it. It's kind of like how in the early 2000s, everything had to be a first-person shooter because Halo was a first-person shooter. And like now everything has to be a battle royale. Like sometimes you just don't want to do more of the same. If that makes any sense. And Wyoming says I get a load of the dark and gritty to work with. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, when you have to deal with that, especially if you have to deal with that stuff in the real world, you don't want more of that in your relaxation time, right? I'm sorry. I have no idea, Stairway, what you were referring to. Antifa Robin Hood was writing on the wall. A, what is Antifa Robin Hood? What are you referring to? I have no idea what you're referring to. Jake Gothic Snake says, yes, same universe, all the different characters. A Middle Eastern warlord named Nandor, the relentless Greek gypsy named Naja, her British husband Laszlo Cravensworth. Huh. Interesting. Well, I really, as I said, I really liked the movie of What We Do in the Shadows, so I look forward to that. I'll have to go check it. What is it on? What platform? Is it on a streaming platform somewhere? That's the other thing that will make me not watch a show is I don't have Hulu. So depending on what streaming service I'm actually subscribed to at the time, I may or may not be watching something. I mean, Netflix related things I'll definitely have, although Netflix is beginning to. I find I watch less and less of Netflix these days, except for like old Seinfeld episodes. Again, kind of need the comedy sandwich there. Watch something dour and depressing, and then go put on an episode of Seinfeld or yeah, who knows what else, just to not have to deal with dark and depressing all the time. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, I got you. 2018 film. Hmm. All right. Well, here's the base of the castle. I don't know for certain. This this part right here looks like the beginning of like a stairwell. Let me get it right in view. It's at the beginning of like a turret stairwell, but I'm not really sure what that's going to be yet. It might be nothing. It might be decorative. Got a little table with food set up. Yeah, interesting. But it's just a foundation right now. So, who knows? All right, everyone. It is past 11, well past 11. It is 11:30 now. So I'm going to go ahead and note my apologies for having completely screwed up the beginning of the stream and having audio issues throughout. I will do better next time, I promise. Um, but yeah, in the meantime, if you'd like to make sure you're on the Discord, make sure you're still subscribed to the channel, which I don't know how you'd be on this live stream if you weren't. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to kind of get things going again and rebuild the channel and doing things differently, which is a little bit scary at the same time. Um, but I put a link to the Discord at the top of this chat, so please feel free. I think it's at the top of this chat. So I don't even know anymore. The whole thing got screwed up so early on. Still is. So uh, if you need, I'll repost it. But I highly recommend joining the rarely used Discord server. Um, I do plan on trying to use it more and interact with people more. So I will do my best with that. And it is a good way to directly reach me as well. I tend to actually read things that people put there, even if it takes me a while. Try that again. There we go. So putting the link in the chat for Discord. And you can also direct message me through there, which I will definitely see. And I tend to always react to direct messages. It's a great place to kind of hang out a bit. I'm likely going to start putting things like polls and things out there to get some feedback. I'd love to know, especially as I do more with the channel and as things continue to change. I'm gonna definitely want some audience feedback. I think, I don't have delusions of grandeur. I'm not interested in trying to just become a huge channel for the sake of it being a career or something. I want to have fun with it, but at the same time, I do want it to be successful. I do want people to enjoy the content I'm creating. So, you know, um, feedback is always welcome. And hopefully, this live stream, which, we've got 10 concurrent viewers right now, right at the end of it. So I apologize if you're just now jumping in. It's nice to have 10 people on. The schedule for right now, I'm going to try to do every night. I'm going to come up here and work on this model for the next couple of weeks. There's like 20 some odd bags in this thing. And if I get through, let's say, 2 bags, probably talking about a week and a half or 2 weeks to build this thing. But I want to come up here and do that on the regular. And, hang out, find something to talk about. If there's no baseball, maybe we'll find a show we can watch together on something like Netflix or a movie. So I'm always open for recommendations there. And yeah, if there's a type of content you'd like to see as well, just generically speaking, let me know. The one thing that I've been real hesitant to do, just because I'm not particularly a fan of the type of content, is just clickbait content. I don't really want to. Again, I don't like really doing like cultural review things or anything like that. But I'm always happy if someone wants to post a random video or something. Let me know. Wesley says your favorite videos are the ones where I was talking about those paintings. I can't remember the artist's name, unfortunately. There would have been 2. Edmund Blair Layton would be one of them. And I'll actually, for your benefit, I'll get the name in the chat. Edmund Blair Layton is probably one of the most recognizable medieval styled artists. And the other one will be this one, which is Frederick William Burton. Frederick Burton. I think most people don't use his full name. They don't tend to use the William part. There we go. Those would probably be one of the artists I would have talked about. I actually, believe it or not, you mentioned that, Wesley. I actually do have a video I want to do on an art piece. Should I give a hint as to what it could be? No, I think I want to save it because I do want to do a video on it, but it would have to be a produced video, and there's a very specific kind of effect I want to have when I talk about this particular art piece. I am not an art expert or critic, though, so my interest in these things tend to be very superficial. There's actually a great channel. Let me go find it. That I'd recommend. Let me see. Art. Let me see if I can find it quickly. I'm going to go into my video history here and do a search for art. Because that is where I would... Oh, wait, that's the wrong thing. Art. Yeah, there's a couple here. And it's Great Art Explained.
Great Art Explained began
Oh,
in May 2020
let's mute.
with a very simple.
Oh, sorry, Knights of Iris. I'm going to try to be better at communicating it prior to it all going up. So, FYI, live stream schedule as planned currently, if I can keep to it, will be 9 p.m. Eastern every night, or every weekday night, so Monday through Friday. I will set the schedule in YouTube usually 15 to 30 minutes prior to the live stream starting. So that'd be either 8:30 to 8:45 Eastern Standard US time. And I will post a link in the Discord, but I'm not going to do it the same way I did before because that really failed me. I will post a link in the Discord when I go live, not exactly like prior to when I go live, because I think that's where something failed before. So if you're on the Discord and you've got notifications on, you will get a notification from me. But yeah, it's going to be my nighttime, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. So that's what is 2100 if you're on that type of timekeeping. And yeah, it's I want to get back into it. As I'm kind of wrapping up the stream here, there's so many things I said that I don't remember, so I might be reiterating myself, but there's enough of an audience here right now that it might be helpful. I was doing these live streams, I was trying to be fairly consistent, and summer hit, and there were kind of two pieces. One, there was heat up here, and honestly, the heat up here right now is about the same as it was, but the thing that really killed it is I actually had really bad tooth pain. And I had a really big dental issue that had to be taken care of. And it was 2 months of pretty regular tooth pain as they were working on getting it fixed. And it was so miserable that the idea of coming up here in the heat of this attic space and trying to be somewhat performative on a live stream, it didn't interest me. I wanted to just go to sleep at the end of every day. And that was at the beginning of summer. And since then, I've had house floods, and I'm doing a bathroom remodel, and there's just a lot happening. And it just, frankly, wore me out. And I was working on producing a new video, which has been published. Not a lot of people have watched yet, or not as many people as would normally. It's a very different type of content, though, so I recognize many people wouldn't want to. So, the time I was working on the channel wasn't during the live stream. Now I'm trying to get back into doing live stream stuff. I'm feeling better. I don't have tooth pain anymore. Floods in basements is being worked on. Bathroom remodels coming to a close soon. So, it's kind of a better time now. And then, of course, as it gets cooler, as we get into September, temperature's going to drop eventually, and this space up here will be much more comfortable. Wyoming, thank you for posting some of those time zone updates for people in the chat. That can be helpful. Yeah, you had the bell on, so you don't know what YouTube is doing. Nobody does. By the way, when I was producing my last video, which is my shameless self-promotion, my video on Tom Clancy's Shadow Break, I was using this microphone to do a lot of the VO for it, and I was really unhappy with the quality of the audio. And I don't know how good this audio is in the live stream, but I have purchased a new microphone, one that is designed for this type of thing. It's not quite podcasting quality, I'm sure, but it's probably more than enough for live streaming. And I hope it gets here probably by end of week, and I will install that and get that working and hopefully have much better audio quality. because it's already bad enough when I have to hear my own voice, but hearing my own voice through bad audio, it was awful. And I really was not happy about that aspect of the video. There's just nothing I could do about it. Jake Gothic Snake says, I've been busy from making content for my art channel. A friend of mine coached me to illustrate for this series of books for children with biblical themes, with dwarves as the main character. So I'm going to make this as a broad request for everyone who's in the chat. When you talk about a thing you are creating, you make illustrations or you do some creative endeavor, please post that in the Discord. I want to see the stuff you guys work on. I'm legitimately interested in the things that my community is doing, and I'd love to see it. So you're illustrating stuff for children's book with biblical themes, with dwarves main character. I want to see that. Show that to me. Post that in the Discord. If you can. Obviously, like, if it's going to be copyrighted or, like, something you can't. But if there's some thing that you could, even if it's just a link to your social media, whether it's a DeviantArt or an Instagram or something, whatever it might be, post it. I'd love to see it. I might have mentioned the dental work part. Yeah. Wesley says, Tom Clancy video looks interesting. I didn't see it in my subscriptions. I'll check it out for sure. Well, and the thing is I posted after I did a channel name change, so probably many people didn't even realize it was my content. It's fine. It's a thing that I was passionate about. Check it out. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, or if you don't, give it a thumbs down. Either way, let me know. Post a comment, whatever. Yeah, the audio stream isn't bad. The audio for this isn't bad. But I can hear it when I was doing the VO work and the inconsistency of it. So I want something better. And I think this other microphone will be better. This one that I have in front of me was an $80 microphone from like 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Technology has come a long way since then, especially because of the advent and the popularity of podcasting and live streaming. So I wanted something a little bit more modernized. It's still USB based, but I want it to be better. I want this whole production to be better because I want to spend more time doing these live streams. You should post your Norman kit in then with all the upgrades and the shields, yeah. And there's a lot that there's a lot that I've been seeing coming in, various things either through the Discord. I've even gotten PMs in the Discord from people, which is awesome. And yeah, I want to be able to see those things and see what people are creating. Because again, I do legitimately think some of their stuff is really cool. Let me actually show you something. I need to pull up my email for this to pull it back out. I had someone email me, which is very rare. I very rarely get emails. Let me be careful about what I show on my email because I was pretty sure it was via email. Here we go. I actually had someone reach out to me in a very odd way. They actually asked me to review a non-Lego building set that is castle-based, but they never got back to me. There is a guy who posted me he emailed me, and he sent me his DeviantArt page with his art. It's a really interesting art style. He's from Hungary, which is that's the thing that blows my mind. I'm some dude from the south, the southern part of the United States. The fact that someone in Hungary has watched my videos blows my mind. But I'm gonna post his DeviantArt here. I thought it was pretty cool stuff. He even has his own self-created runic alphabet replacement thing that he uses in his art, which is pretty cool. Has his alphabet, his runic alphabet kind of has this quasi almost Korean lettering look to it. You know, or I don't know what you call Korean kanji, but the Korean characters. Um, and it's this very bright. It's like this weird blend of Jamaican art and I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's pretty interesting. And again, people are just they have their own creative endeavors, and I want to be able to see that and support it. And thank you for posting things. I'm gonna take a look. I didn't get notifications, but I think my sound was off. Where did it get posted to? Stairway messaged in the. I'll respond to Discord later, I guess, because it's gonna be kind of hard to do this on stream. Um, let's see. Illustrations haven't been scanned yet, but I happen to post links to my art channel and DeviantArt account. Great. Like, just share it around. Like, it'd be really cool to see what everyone is working on. I'd love to see it. Currently weaving brass mail for the bottom of my hallmark. Awesome. So we got multiple people working on chainmail while they're watching my content. That's cool. Yeah. And I want to find a way to. The other thing I want to do is be able to find a way to engage everyone more in the chat here. A little bit better interactivity. So I might come up with a couple things here and there as we go. But yeah. Wyoming says medieval topics, Thomas. Well, yes, people always want medieval topics for my channel. I get that. I still really like talking about medieval things. I'll be honest, one of the things that really has made me struggle is that I don't want to do what other more successful channels have done. You know, a lot of my peers that do medieval themed things have done things that are in the medieval topics. Okay, I'll go check it out. Thank you. In Discord. That is the thing that really drove me away from doing a lot of or wanting to do a lot of medievals. Oh man, that looks cool. Oh, you'd posted. Yeah, Sir Thomas, you posted some of this stuff earlier. Great. It's good stuff. By the way, what you should do, is it looks like you've got someone taking these pictures for you, but there are some, depending on where you live, you could go find some really cool universities or places with interesting architecture that might even have some Norman themes to them. But yeah, it looks good. 'Cause yeah, I on the medieval topics prior, I'd seen some of your other pictures from a while back. And it's coming along. It's good stuff. Which, by the way, Sir Thomas, I think I owe you a response. By the way. Awesome. Well, yeah. So, all right, we are rapidly closing in on midnight here, so I definitely need to wrap up this stream. But I'll be back on again 9 p.m. Eastern Standard tomorrow. We'll continue building the castle. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm gonna see if I can come up with a couple fun things to do in the meantime. Yeah. So. With that said, I hope everyone has a wonderful night. And I look forward to doing this tomorrow. So, talk to you all later. And, yeah, we'll get this castle built. I promise. Cheers, guys.